to Convince Me, presented by Bet365. We are kicking off the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about and none of the fluff you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, and Chris Raybon are going to convince me all the props, all the sides, all the totals I need to bet for today's games. Plus, we got Darren Rovell and Evan Abrams on the Action Network news desk with stats, data, trends to make you smarter. At the bottom, half the hour, Gilles Gallant, Brian Matthews, Charlie Disturco will take us through the touchdown show, previewing the best touchdown props on the board today. Don't forget, me and my favorites co-host, Simon Hunter, we are doing a live episode of our podcast, The Shepherd and the Knucklehead, next Sunday, a week from today. Shepherd and the Knucklehead, Hoboken, New Jersey. Check out the link, the RSVP link in the description page for this show on YouTube. Got to RSVP, free drinks, free bets with me and Simon, free hugs. Also, don't forget, like this video and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. All the picks we discussed today available for free in the award-winning Action Network app. Download it. Don't forget, BetSync, your Bet365 bets with the Action app, the coolest, slickest way to track your picks with ease and speed. Click the My Accounts button in the My Action tab in the Action app. All right, Koerner, it's been a long holiday weekend. It's time to get back to normal. A little bit of settling in, sweating our bets, enjoying the day. None of this interruption with, festivities and family and all that other stuff. Give me something good to bet today, Koerner.
Exactly. Let's get back to sweating some disgusting player props. I'm going with Isaiah Hodgins under 20.5 receiving yards. For those that don't know who Isaiah Hodgins is, he's a wide receiver on the New York Giants. And his 22 receiving yards last week was the first time he's cleared this number since week 4. And this isn't, a matchup where I think he's going to be much more productive either against the Patriots. They use man coverage at the 5th highest rate in the league, and Hodgins has only averaged 0.7 yards per route run against man coverage. That's the 5th lowest rate among qualified wide receivers. And this correlates nicely. I saw you have the Giants spread this week. We want that. We want this to be a close game, possibly the Giants leading, where they're just going to lean on the run game, Saquon Barkley, and not chucking it to Isaiah Hodgins here. So this correlates nicely with your spread pick. And I'm guessing the market is a bit inflated here due to Darius Slayton expected to miss this game. I do have Hodgins getting a decent boost in playing time, but it's Sterling Shepard who's actually been Slayton's direct backup, so he's going to get the biggest boost in playing time here. He's also commanded more targets per route run than Slayton this year. So if anything, Shepard getting more playing time could hurt Hodgins' target rate. So having said all that, I'm projecting his median closer to 15.5 yards with about a 61% chance he stays under 20.5.
Koerner, when you say out loud that I have the Giants, it just brings harsh reality to the idea that I have bet on the New York Giants. Not only did I bet on the Giants, I bet him at 3.5, not 4.5, which is what the number is. So now I feel even worse. By the way, kudos to you. You had Tim Boyle over 28.5 pass attempts on Black Friday. And lo and behold, the guy had 11 pass attempts in the first half and then about 34 in the fourth quarter. So
he had 12 going into the fourth quarter.
Nice work by you. All right, Simon, what do you got?
Chad, taking a guy fresh off injury, fresh off IR. My man Williams is back for the Rams. If you don't remember him, he's this rookie phenom that just works perfectly in that Rams run blocking scheme. So what's he, a second year? I don't even know. But Williams to me is just a guy that he's a workhorse back right now for the Rams. And the fact that they sat him, put him on IR, they just wanted to get him right. It was an injury that he probably could have came back in a couple of weeks, and they wanted him to take the full time. So Williams has been back. He's been practicing. The last time they played Arizona, he had 20 carries for 158 and a touchdown. Like, it's just an easy running scheme to play against Arizona. They're bad against the run. They're one of the worst run defenses in football. So even if he doesn't get all the touches, even if they're giving touches still to Freeman, they're trying to ease him back into the game. McVay said he's their goal line back. So I think we're getting a good price here. It's just minus 110 right now for his anytime touchdown. I really do think it's just because he's coming back from an injury and they think they have a crowded backfield there. But I still think, just like I told you with Mostert, it didn't work out last week with him in the red zone, but it did this week. It's the same thing with Williams here. You're getting the goal line back at a minus 110 number. I'm going to take it every time. So give me Williams against Arizona today, anytime touchdown, minus 110.
All right, Raybon, you're especially prickly this morning. I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Not at all. Let's go Chuba Hubbard, under 46.5 rushing yards. He's been with 41 or fewer in 6 out of his 10 games already. Now he's facing this Titans run defense that is top 5 in run DVOA. Titans defense always can stop the run no matter what's going on the back end. Simmons up in the front. He really anchors that line. And last week, remember, Frank Reich took back over the play calling duties for whatever reason. And the one thing that really changed was Miles Sanders was kind of reinserted back into the rotation. Miles Sanders he'd been hurt, and then he'd been playing like the clear RB2. But last week, Miles Sanders had 11 carries. Chuba Hubbard had only 10. So there's a little bit of uncertainty too, is Chuba Hubbard even going to get his usual workload? So I'm actually under 40 yards projected for him when you combine the toughness of the matchup with the fact that he may split carries with Miles Sanders. So love the under 46.5.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too. I also like the Hodgins one, and not just because it plays to what I want to happen in the game, which is I don't want Tommy DeVito to have over 22 yards passing. I want him to hand the ball off 55 times and the Giants to control that game. I think I'm going to go with Isaiah Hodgins. Listen, Koerner's on a little bit of a run right now, so I'm going to ride those coattails. Give me Hodgins and his under receiving yardage. All right, let's talk about some sides. Koerner, take it away.
All right. I'm going Bengals plus 2.5. And I barely won fading the Steelers last week. They lost 13-10, but they still got lucky according to our expected score that fuels the luck rankings. Had them losing closer to 12 points. So even in their loss, they were a little bit lucky. They're still, by far the luckiest team in our luck rankings. So they're still a team I'm interested in fading. And even though it's about damn time they did fire offensive coordinator Matt Canada, it's something they're going to benefit long-term from, but I don't think it's a short-term fix. I think they're going to still have some issues on offense. The main reason they're minus 2.5 here against the Bengals on the road is due to Joe Burrow being out. And obviously going from Joe Burrow to Joe Browning is a huge drop-off. I have it being worth around 6 points, but if you look at last week's look-ahead line, it was Bengals minus 6. So I do think this should be closer to a pick-'em. So I do think this is, a slight overreaction to, Burrow being out. And we have to remember, Burrow hasn't been 100% for most of the year. It wasn't until, after the week 7 bye, I think he was completely over that calf injury. So as a result, if you look at the season long metrics, he's been, outside of the top 15 in a lot of the key metrics I look at. So the drop off probably isn't that big if you're looking at overall stats. Plus, the Bengals have had the second toughest schedule to date. So I just think they're a team that's probably they're slightly underrated right now. And Jake Browning's awful, but he's your typical average backup quarterback. He's looked fine in preseason play the past couple seasons. He still has, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon to lean on. He does have some rushing upside too that I think can help him overcome his inefficiencies as a passer. So like I said, I think this should still be closer to pick him. And I'm still interested in, fading the very lucky Steelers right now.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game. This line has bounced around a little bit and gone. It opened it sort of the 2 to 3 range and then got bet down and now has come back up. There's actually some 2.5s out there if you can find them. I think that the market is probably in the public market. I mean, overestimating the firing of Matt Canada, like something miraculous can happen with Kenny Pickett and this offensive scheme in the span of 4 days, and probably underestimating what happens with the backup quarterback. Evan, during the Favorites podcast this week, gave us some great stats about the performance of backup quarterbacks in their first 2 games, especially their first start, and how they perform against the spread, which is actually north of 53%. So some good trends there for the Bengals. Simon,
Chad, going with Houston, home dog Houston. It's a rare opportunity, I think, to still take CJ as a home dog. I don't know how much longer we're going to keep getting these opportunities, but we'll take it. The Jaguars are, most people like the Jaguars, right? They've been a team this year. People like coming to the season. Houston was a fun story. Now we've kind of seen these last couple of weeks. CJ hasn't played his best. Trevor Lawrence coming off his best game of the year. I'm not buying it. I think Trevor Lawrence this year has not been the guy I thought he was going to be. He struggled from game to game. He's been inconsistent. Their offense has been consistent, and it all falls on him. So when I'm looking at this matchup, I think it just gets to them, the pressure of this. They know this is for the division. This is everything, right? The Jags, it's all on them. Houston just wants to play spoiler. And this is a game that, if you look at their splits, it's a big deal to get CJ as a dog. If you look at him this year, he's 5-1 as an underdog. He's 0-4 as a favorite. So right there, we like that. He's still an underdog. He's still catching 1.5 at home. Then you go on the other side, Trevor Lawrence against Houston in his career. He's 1-4 straight up, 1-4 ATS. So clearly this guy, he plays well against Tennessee. He plays well in his division. But then when he plays Houston, he always struggles. And he has since his career started. So the fact that this is at home in Houston, they know what's on the line here. Like, this is for the division. I'm going to take CJ in this spot over Trevor. I have more faith right now in CJ than I do in Trevor Lawrence. So it might be a little bit of a public dog. I've seen most of the money has come in on Houston at this point, but I still feel confident taking the hook with the 1.5. So give me Texans plus 1.5, Chad.
Yeah, this is a really interesting game. I like this game too. I like the Texans a lot in this game. It feels like one of these games where bookmakers can't change their projections on a team so dramatically week to week. And I think they've been trying to catch up on the Texans all season long and haven't quite been able to get to a point where the number matches what the real number, where their number matches what the real number for their power rating should be. So yeah, I think the Texans are a solid choice here. Also, hat tip to Brandon Anderson, who, I don't know, Simon, if you remember this, or Raybon, you remember this, in a preseason pod we did going over some of our favorite bets. Brandon Anderson liked the Texans to win the AFC South. Raybon, who you betting today?
Go to Buffalo Bills +3 at the best team in football, Philadelphia. Except, I don't know if Philadelphia is really the best team in football. You look at all the underlying metrics. DVOA, Buffalo 5th, Philadelphia 10th. Offense, Buffalo 3rd, Philly 6th. Defense, Buffalo 15, Philadelphia 17. So Philadelphia, number 2 in our luck rankings. They're not quite as lucky as their crosstown brethren, the Steelers, out there in Pennsylvania. But Philadelphia has been running a little bit hot compared to how they're playing. And the key for Buffalo is not really the offense, which I think was good, probably a bit of an overreaction to fire Dorsey, but the run defense has gotten a lot better since the middle of the season. Since week 7, they're 4th in run defense success rate. And that's one spot behind Philadelphia, who's got an elite run defense. So, and Philadelphia's elite run defense in this kind of game doesn't really benefit them as much because Buffalo is not really trying to establish the run. Their best runner is Josh Allen. So I think the matchup is very good for Buffalo, despite being on the road here. And I think that, with Buffalo, they're the number 31 team in our luck ranking. So they've been very unlucky. So you have a big discrepancy here. I think these teams are a lot more evenly matched than the public thinks. And, getting the 3 here, love it for Buffalo. And, Buffalo's, that was their first cover in their last 7 games last week when they blew out the Jets. So when you have a non-division dog with 1 or fewer covers in their last 7 games, those teams are 76, 50, and 3 against the spread since 2004. That's a 60% hit rate. So give me Buffalo +3.
Yeah, this has been my favorite game all week from the second lines open last week. Buffalo was a 3.5 point dog. It got bet down to 3. You mentioned the luck rankings, Raybon. And look, if the Chiefs don't drop a wide open touchdown pass, if Travis Kelce doesn't fumble, we're talking about a different game. And the Eagles have had a couple lucky spots, I think, in the luck rankings and one of the write-ups. It's very possible the Eagles should have 6 wins, not 9 wins. And meanwhile, the Bills on the other side of the ball, look, one of the biggest things that impacted them this year was they lost Matt Milano at linebacker. They lost Tre'Davious White at cornerback. They then traded for Rasul Douglas, and he's been with the team now 3 games. This will be his 4th game. Last week against the Jets, 2 picks, 1 fumble recovery. He's grading out as the 2nd best cornerback, according to Pro Football Focus. He's having an incredible season so far, both with the Packers and with the Bills. That's the kind of playmaker they were missing during the streak when they were winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. So I like the Bills here a lot. This is a chance for them to reestablish themselves in the AFC East, in the AFC, get back on the playoff track. I like the Bills +3. All right, let's go to my friends, Darren Rovell and Evan Abrams at the Action Network News Desk. Hello, fellas. Happy Thanksgiving.
What's up?
Happy Thanksgiving. Glad I didn't need anything for Thanksgiving again. Most bet teams today, Bills, Eagles, Ravens, Chargers, Steelers, Bengals. That's the most bet games. Most bet teams, Eagles -3, Ravens -3.5, and the overly public Steelers -2.5. People just love them. What are we? Are they number 1 in the luck rankings still? Guys, I didn't check the luck rankings. So yes, they are. Okay. My friend said he was definitely going with the Steelers in the survival pool this week. I don't know what I'm going to tell him, but bet overs. The most bet overs are Jaguars Texans 48, Bucks Colts 44.5, and Saints Falcons. They are the Falcons are the 5th worst team to the over the last 5 years. Bet unders, Browns Broncos 37. Broncos since 2021, 15-29. They are that's to the over. So 29-15. They are the most reliable under team. And so are the Steelers, who are the 3rd bet under here. Steelers, Bengals 36.5. At number 2 is Chiefs, Raiders at 43.5. Most bet underdogs, Browns +105, Texans +100, and the Giants +170. Over the last decade, the Browns and the Giants as underdogs winning straight up are the worst in the NFL. Good luck, people. And then the props, Jaylen Warren over 48.5 rushing yards, and Stefon Diggs over 6.5 receptions. So those are the most bet props. Ev, what do you got?
Welcome to win total season, people. Week 12. So this week, the Texans can go over 6-4, win total 6.5. The Bengals can go under. They're 5-5, 11.5 win total. Panthers can also go under. They are 1-9, 7.5 win total. The NFL hasn't made it to week 12 without at least one settled win total since the 2002 season. So this is a little bit different, a little bit late, but here we are with 3 that can go. So Jaguars, Texans, biggest game of the day, probably, maybe. Jaguars covered 9 straight road neutral games. That is the longest in franchise history for them. And one more win today would give them the longest streak in the last 20 years, road neutral at 10. So crazy streak going on in Jacksonville. Now, afternoon game, Kansas City. They have struggled in late games. They are 2-8 against the 4th quarter spread this season. 16-34 against the 4th quarter spread of the last 3 seasons. And this year, they are 10-0 to the under in the second half and 10-0 to the under in the 4th quarter. So no scoring for Kansas City late. And Chad, Darren, here we go. So speaking of Kansas City, Vegas, Antonio Pierce, 3-0 against the spread as the Raiders head coach. Since 1990, yeah, that's right, 1990, only 2 other Vegas Raiders Oakland head coaches have been over 500 against the spread in their careers. I just want you to name them.
Darren, I got this. Are you ready?
Who's that guy, not James. Tom Flores.
John Gruden, Art Shell.
Okay, so John Gruden is one. The other one is not Art Shell. This one is just, it's unbelievable this guy was over 500 against the spread. One more guess?
Who was the dude who took over for half a season? Rich something or other?
It wasn't Bisaccia. That's a great guess. It was Hugh Jackson. It's Hugh Jackson, 9-6-1 against
Hugh Jackson.
Hugh Jackson, John Gruden, Antonio Pierce.
By the way, here's an idea of how I started my day, dropping my older son off at the train to go back to college at 6 a.m. He was asking me why I was betting the Raiders +10 against the Chiefs this week. And then I gave him all the stats that Evan just gave. Great spot. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia, or 18 or older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. All right, we were talking a little bit about totals. Koerner, what do you got?
So I'm going with the Bills, Eagles under 48.5. I think I've seen some 49s pop up in spots, so rather have under 49 here. But this game has a high total due to two potent offenses. But I think both defenses are underrated right now. And, the Bills defense has been up and down all season. They rank 15th in DVOA. But as you guys already mentioned, this is a unit that's getting much better lately. Chad, you already mentioned the secondary is a lot better. Rasul Douglas there. He's been playing at a very high level all season. One of the best cornerbacks in the league this year. Teams have had a QB rating of just 26 when targeting him since he joined the Bills. And Raybon mentioned, the Bills' run defense getting better. That's also true. I think the main reason the run defense has gotten a lot better is the emergence of linebacker Tyrell Dodson. Since he emerged in week 7 and 8, he's been one of the best linebackers in the league. The Bills were allowing the second highest yards per carry weeks 1 through 7. Since he became a full-time player in week 8, they've led the third lowest yards per rush. Huge part of his play. I mean, he's been incredible. The main weakness for the Bills defense would be defending tight ends, but the Eagles can't counter that. They don't have Dallas Goedert right now. They're rolling out Jack Stoll, who's one of the least efficient tight ends in the league. So they're not going to be able to attack that. And on the other side, the Eagles, they have a really good run defense. They've been more of a pass funnel defense, but it's a bit misleading because they've allowed 40-plus pass attempts a game because they're typically winning and, opposing teams have to throw more. So their numbers are a bit inflated. But when you look, when the game's within a one-score game, they've allowed the 4th lowest yards per attempt. So I think their defense, giving up a ton of yards passing is a bit misleading. Plus, Sean Hockley is reffing this game. He's been the 4th most profitable ref to the under, 34-21 since 2020. So that's a 62% hit rate. So yeah, two very potent offenses, but I think both defenses are underrated right now.
Look, I love that you added the Sean Hockley. I love that you're talking about this Bills defense. Like, so much of betting is catching it right before the market realizes what's happening. And this is one of those weeks, like, you're trying to figure out when the Bills covered by so many points last week, was that them getting better? Or was that them just playing a really bad team? This is the week that it seems like you and me and others are going to be betting on Buffalo getting a little bit healthier. I like this one. I like this one a lot. Simon.
Rest in peace to your bets, Sean. Here we go.
Dude, some of my bets are some of your bets. So
I know you just get me nervous when you're just talking about how much you love a bet and you just keep talking about it. I don't know. As an Eagles fan, I'm feeling pretty good. Here we go. Colts, Bucks, under. It was 45.5. Just check chat. It's a moving. It's down to 45, 44.5 at a lot of books. So hopefully you can grab the 45. It's just a spot. You're playing the spot here of the Colts coming off their bye week after Germany, long rest, playing against a Bucks team, all coming off a tough road loss to the 49ers, back-to-back road games, and then a great stat for my guy, Evan. Baker, he's been incredible to the under. He is 15-5 in the last year to the under and 12-3 to the under in his last 15 starts. That's just incredible. I think it's more the fact that not that this team doesn't trust Baker to throw the ball, but they don't want them. They don't. The Bucks do not want Baker to be the reason they win or lose games, right? They kind of want him to be a game manager, and that's been working for them. On the flip side, the same thing goes for Minshew. It's like Minshew, yeah, he came out firing when he first came in there and was the backup quarterback and then got a couple starts and was going crazy. But if you look at the last couple of weeks, I mean, the guy's not really throwing that much, right? They have Jonathan Taylor back that kind of want to ball control the game. That's the Colts game plan. So not shocking to see this numbers come down. I was shocked to hear when Darren said this is one of the most bet overs. So I mean, the public, they must look at the injury report and say, well, the Colts, they got some injuries to the secondary. Maybe the Bucs will throw the ball and move the ball. I think they will, but I still believe they'll struggle in the red zone. So the fact that this number is still up at 45, I love this under. I would take this down to 44. So hopefully you can get to 45. It's one of my favorite unders this week.
Okay. Didn't even think about that one this week. Raybon, what do you got?
Go Raiders Chiefs under 43.5. You've had the Raiders finish with a total of 43 or below in 9 of their 10 games this year. 7 of the 10 Chiefs games, 43 or below, have they finished. And both of these defenses kind of lend themselves to unders because both are top 7 in fewest explosive plays allowed. And the Raiders defense, they're actually slightly above average this year. They're 16th in DVOA. The Chiefs are top 5 as well. So this is another spot where I think we're so used to both of these teams having bad defenses. But this year, the Chiefs have had a very good defense, and the Raiders are just slightly above average and have been really good at limiting explosive plays, make you drive the length of the field. And we've seen 6 straight Chiefs games go under now, 4 straight Vegas games go under. When you've had at least both teams enter the game with at least 3 straight unders, the under in that next game is 47, 28, and 1, 63% over the last 2 decades. So give me the under in Chiefs Raiders 43.5.
Yeah, the Chiefs are not the scoring team that they've been in years past. Look at some of these primetime games we've seen. They scored very few points twice against the Broncos. They've scored very few points against the Eagles. And also in the second half this year, I don't know if it's by scheme, by choice, by coaching strategy, they are not a team scoring a lot of touchdowns in the second half of games, especially the past 5 games. So I still think they're quite overinflated when it comes to the totals market. But Simon knows. Simon caught me. I love this Buffalo Philly game. I feel like everyone's getting it wrong and we're getting it right here on Convince Me Today. I'm not afraid to tempt the gods. I'm not afraid of the karma. Give me Buffalo Philly under the total right now. Thank you, Sean Koerner. All right, let's get on to Sunday Night Football. To me, it's one of the most interesting games on the board. The line has moved. It was Ravens -3.5. It's now Ravens -3 visiting the LA Chargers. The Ravens are getting 61% of the bets. They're getting 54% of the money. Koerner, what do you got here?
So similar to last week, this isn't my official Sunday Night Football prop. That'll be out later today, but I do like this tackles prop. It's Derwin James over 7.5 tackles and assists, and it's +110, Chad. You don't even have to pay any juice here.
Juice free.
Plus money. Juice free. But he's been playing in the box at a much higher rate the past 3 games. So he's been averaging 10 tackles a game over that stretch, 16 tackles against the run game, which leads the team. So they're going to need him here because I'm projecting the Ravens closer to 30 rush attempts. And Lamar also attempts passes over the middle of the field at the 2nd highest rate in the league, which is great for safeties. So both factors are why the Ravens have provided opposing safeties with the 3rd most tackles per game. So this is an amazing spot for Derwin James. He's a great safety, obviously, going to rack up tackles here. I'm projecting this a little over 8. So the fact that we're getting, +110 is even better.
Is there a total on how many personal fouls and hits to the head Derwin James is going to get called for today if we expect the Ravens to be running it about 30 times? Simon Hunter, what do you got?
So I'll give you some flowers. You nailed it this game Sunday night. Chad, the sharpest man in the room, was all over the Chargers at +4. Now us peasants are here giving the +3 on the Chargers. So I'm going to still take it. You forced me into a corner. Wanted to take the under, but that would have been lazy. People know I'm already on the under. It's a primetime under. Of course I'm on the under. So we'll give out the Chargers. Some more stats for my guy, Evan. Herbert, as an underdog of 3 points or more, 10-4 in his career ATS. He's 5-1 ATS in his last 6 games in this spot. It's just, we fade Herbert as a favorite, Chad. We say it every year, every show. We fade Herbert as a favorite. What happened last week in Green Bay? No one knows how they got there, but Green Bay, they covered that number. Same thing with this week. I have no idea how Herbert's going to cover this number. Maybe he won't, but I'm playing the odds, playing the numbers. I take Herbert as a dog. He's always fighting, always has his team in these games, and it just gives me memories of what's going on with the Ravens this year. We've seen them struggle protecting leads, and I can't bet them to protect the lead against a guy like Herbert, who's going to keep fighting, keep throwing the ball downfield. I got to take the point. So not shocking to see the public loves the Ravens in this spot, but it is shocking seeing the number come down so much from 4, 3.5. Now it's down to 3. So I would grab the 3 now just in case the pros keep betting and it goes on to 2.5 by kickoff.
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting spot for the Chargers coming off the loss the way they did. Brandon Staley feeling the heat, getting called out, his defense that he's calling the plays for, absolutely dreadful, incredible talent on the offensive side of the ball. And when you want to bet the Chargers, like you said, it's when they're underdogs. You also want to bet against the Ravens and John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson when they're favorites. Not a good spot historically, under 500 against the spread in those scenarios. Chris, Raybon, your final bet for Sunday Night Football.
Go Nelson Aguilar, anytime touchdown, plus 450. The Chargers are playing the 6th most man coverage, and Nelson Aguilar has 3 touchdowns against man this year. That leads the Ravens, and that's actually tied for 5th in the whole entire National Football League. So he's been the guy when defenses play man coverage, they look for him. And without Mark Andrews, that just bumps him up a little bit too. And all the Ravens receivers have been on the injury report this week, so you never know how hurt any of those guys are. And, Odell Beckham really hasn't been playing a full complement of snaps. Bateman neither. So Aguilar's been running playing about 50% of the snaps, even though he's the number 4 receiver. So I think this is a good spot for him to get back in the end zone. So going Aguilar anytime touchdown.
Yeah, I really want to bet the Derwin James tackles prop because Koerner has been all over these tackles props. I'm honestly, and I say this without sarcasm, I'm afraid he'll get kicked out of the game. Like it's always a possibility. Look, he's a hard hitter. He aims high. It happens. And so I'm a little bit nervous about it, especially an intense game that I think will be close. I'm taking the Chargers plus 3. I've been on them all week. So I'm going with Simon and the Chargers plus 3 at home against the Ravens. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia, or 18 or older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Don't forget, join me and Simon for a special live episode of the Favorites Podcast next Sunday, a week from today. We go live with our Sunday night show, Shepherd and the Knucklehead in Hoboken. You must RSVP, free entry, free drinks, sweat the bets with me and Simon for the afternoon games and watch us do our show. Check out the info below in the Power Hour YouTube description. Go to eventbrite.com and search the Favorites Podcast for more info as well. Don't forget, download the award-winning Action Network app, track all the picks we're making for the show. And as individuals, make sure to like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Stay tuned for the Touchdown Show.
Thank you, Chad, and the whole Kibitsky crew, and welcome to Week 12 of the Touchdown Show on the Action Network, presented by Bet365. I'm Gilles Gallant. I'm joined every week by Charlie Disturco, and we welcome back Brian Matthews, a.k.a. the B-Mat. He was able to spend some time with his family for Thanksgiving. I hope you guys and everybody watching was able to as well. But one person who spent some time with me was Charlie on Wednesday when we did the Thanksgiving show, and Charlie was on such a heater. He hit Jaden Reed, Josh Reynolds, Deebo Samuel, Kevontae Turpin, just on a hot streak.
Let's go.
But then decided to kind of like undercut himself. He decided to go to MetLife for the Black Friday game. So a bit of a mixed bag for the last couple of days for Charlie here. But Charlie, we got Ravens Chargers on deck for Sunday Night Football at least.
Yeah, I had to, get myself a haircut and cleanse myself of the Jets just not being able to score touchdowns until garbage time.
So frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, at least hopefully, I don't think there's another primetime game. Maybe there is, but hopefully we're off the Jets wagon. We got Ravens Chargers tonight. This is going to be, I think, a high scoring game, one that'll be fun to bet some touchdowns on. B-Matt, I don't know if you think the under trend continues on primetime. I'm hoping it's reversed right now.
Hey, look, it's got the potential. I do know this. I've already played a few touchdown scores in that game. So I actually think this one could be a little more exciting, especially than what we've been seeing. Sorry, Charlie. I know your Jets have been
every week
on the forefront. But hey, look, man, I think this game could be exciting. You got two good offenses, two pretty good defenses. So, yeah, we'll see where we go with this.
Beautiful. Yeah. So we're going to talk about Sunday Night Football a little bit later in the show. Nick Giffen is going to join us as well, talk about some fair odds for the touchdown scores in this game. But how the show is going to go until we get to that stage, we're each going to have 4 anytime touchdown bets today. We're going to start off with our favorite best bets, and then we're going to kick up the difficulty, and then we'll get spicy with some long shots. And the touchdown show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, let's get started. This is my best bet for week 12. We're going right to Giants versus Patriots. And I'm going to take Ramondre Stevenson at plus 160. Now, BMAT throws around the term pot committed a little bit every once in a while. And I feel truly pot committed with Ramondre Stevenson, but that's because of how confident I am in this bet, because it's a great matchup versus the Giants. Now, Ramondre, a bit of a struggle this year, but he still leads the team in red zone carries. Kendrick Bourne is out now, so as a result, by default, he actually is tied for the most red zone targets as well on the Patriots with Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. And Ramondre, we all know how good he is. He leads the team in rushing yards, rushing attempts. He's third in overall passing targets on the team. But why we want this here, like I can go on about how good Ramondre is, but the reason why we want Ramondre is because the Patriots, they're coming off bye. They've got some real instability at quarterback. Mac Jones is likely to play today. And with his turnover-prone aspect, like you really don't want to bank on him maybe in the red zone, which is why I think they'll probably hand the ball to Ramondre a lot more. And that should help because the Giants, they've allowed the most rushing touchdowns this year with 15. They rank 28th in defensive DVOA versus the run. And just the awful kicker here, they're missing their best defensive lineman in Dexter Lawrence, who is probably their best run stuffer. And so now you've got Tommy DeVito at quarterback, who looked obviously pretty good against the Commanders last week. I don't think that's going to hold over here. I think if anything, he's probably going to have a couple turnovers, maybe even turnovers in his own end, get some short field, which would set up for the Patriots to be able to score. So Ramondre Stevenson, I got it at plus 160. It's probably around plus 150 now. I would still play that. So Ramondre Stevenson at plus 160 is my favorite touchdown bet for week 12. Charlie, you have a bet for the afternoon slate. What do you like?
Yeah, heading out to Kansas City. And this is a game where I think the Chiefs are going to control, the entire narrative, the game script. So I'm going Isaiah Pacheco at plus 100. The man is an Energizer bunny. It seems like even if they're up 20 or it's a tie game, he's running and he's screaming and he's throwing his legs all over the place. There's an outburst coming for Isaiah Pacheco. The way that he runs hard in this matchup against the Vegas Raiders. It's a great one. You look at Pacheco's numbers. He's had 5 weeks of not scoring on the ground. He did have a receiving touchdown against the Chargers, but in 4 of his last 5, he's averaged nearly 4 yards per carry. Now he gets a Vegas Raiders defense that's 21st in DVOA against the run. That's allowed touchdowns in 5 of the last 7 are running backs. And I mean, Max Crosby is trying to play. I have no idea if he will or not. It seems like he's trying to become Superman and actually get on that line. But how effective will he be stopping Pacheco? I'm not sure. I think this is a game where you see the Chiefs come out angry. You see them come out hot. They lost that game to Philly, in which they should have won. And then not even counting the Marquez Valdez-Scantling drop. But so I love Isaiah Pacheco here. He's got 2 touchdowns on 12 attempts inside the 10. So maybe even a little positive regression coming for the Energizer Bunny himself at plus money. I think this is too high to pass up. So give me Isaiah Pacheco to start things off.
Yeah, usually Pacheco gets the Chiefs premium. So he's right around usually the odds around Travis Kelce, minus 120 to minus 125 each week. So getting at even odds in a plus matchup is definitely a solid move by Charlie here. And it's really interesting too with this slate because we only have 6 games at the 1 p.m. slate and we have 4 games in the afternoon slate. So it's a little tricky to find value maybe in the earlier slate, which is why I think Charlie has a pick rather for the 4 p.m. slate. And so does BMAT. BMAT, what is your pick for week 12?
All right. So you guys know I love the good squeaky wheel narrative, especially with wide receivers. And we've mentioned this guy kind of joking that if he weren't, having a good day, he would be in his quarterback's ear. So look, I'm going Stephon Diggs. Like the guy over his last 2 games has a combined 58 receiving yards. Like that is I think that's just a few yards lower than, his single game lowest prior to that. The Eagles are a pass funnel defense. They've given up the most touchdowns over their last 4 games to wide receivers. And look, if you're Stephon Diggs, your brother's tweeting, you need to get out of there. How do you make him happy? You throw him the ball, especially in this matchup where I don't think either team's going to blow, either one out. I think we can see a fair amount of offense. And the way to beat the Eagles is through the air. So, look, I'm not overthinking this one. I've been keeping my eye on Stephon Diggs, hoping the odds are going to be decent. So I'm going to take Stephon Diggs with my first pick at plus 130.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Eagles are actually an interesting secondary because of that pass funnel where they want to keep things outside, or keep things over the middle as opposed to outside. But Diggs is kind of one of those matchup breakers that could really, he's probably going to be matched up against Darius Slay a lot and Bradbury maybe to a lesser extent, but that's going to be a primetime matchup in itself to watch those two jostle all game. So I think Diggs can definitely get the best of them. And the fact that you're able to get it at plus 130, another guy, again, where we're seeing odds maybe reflected in the inverse. Normally the Bills offense, similar to the Chiefs, you would see that premium at the top where, Diggs would be minus 120, James Cook probably plus 110, Gabe Davis maybe plus 175, but now facing against the Eagles on the road, you're getting a little bit of a boost here. So I think Diggs at plus 130, very solid look. The other thing I was going to ask you, B-Matt, especially with his recent struggles. So I imagine at the start of the year when you were doing your touchdown tiers for the actionnetwork.com, Stephon Diggs will likely be a tier 1 guy. He's a top 5 wide receiver easily in the NFL. But with these recent struggles, has that bumped him out of tier 1, or would he remain in tier 1 despite those recent struggles?
So no, that's a good question. So Stephon Diggs, he's staying in tier 1 for right now. It's one of those things where you kind of have to balance, the upside and the projections with, the matchup. And look, 2 games isn't going to do anything for me. It's Stephon Diggs we're talking here. He's in one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. Oftentimes they turn the ball over a bit, so they're trailing and throw the ball quite a bit. So, like you said, it's just one of those where he's tier 1, and this is kind of the last week where I'm like, all right, if he only has, like a 30, 40-yard game, maybe he's going top of tier 2, but tier 1 for this week.
All right. So you can check out those tiers at actionnetwork.com from Brian on where he is ranking the anytime touchdown scorers and ranking them based on their probability to score. But now we are going to kick it up a notch. We are going to take now our second best bet of week 12.
All right.
I went first for our first best bet. Charlie, why don't you go first for our second bet?
Yeah, so, there's a few guys on this show that gets passed around kind of like a revolving door, and I'm targeting one of those guys. It's not Michael Pittman this time, but it is in the game where he's playing, and it's Chris Godwin at plus 240. We say it every week, right? This guy is due for positive touchdown regression. He has 8 targets inside the 10-yard line, just 1 total touchdown. So I'm expecting them, at least Godwin, to see some success. He had that touchdown on prime time that we were all on about a month ago or so. But this is a great matchup against Indianapolis. They're 28th to the wide receiver 2 position when it comes to DVOA, 19th against wide receiver 3. Juju Brents is out for Indianapolis, so a secondary that's already going to be a bit shorthanded. Godwin able to line up on the outside or in the slot, so kind of a matchup nightmare to kind of game plan against. And we've seen so many targets and touchdowns go to Mike Evans. I think you were messaging us last week about how you're like, oh man, only Mike Evans every time. But this is the spot. Yeah, every time. But I think this is the spot to get Chris Godwin. I actually think this is a sneaky game where we can see a lot of points. I mean, Evans could get a touchdown. Godwin can get a touchdown.
Mhm.
He's targeted often. He's used often in this offense. And the Bucs have drawn criticism throughout the entire week. And their offensive coordinator, everyone, just how bad this offense has been and what's the way to get things going. It's going through your two best players. And so Godwin, after a couple of down weeks, I think it's a great buy spot on him. Plus 240 against his Colts defense that prior to the last couple of weeks, against the Panthers in New England, had given him 37 plus to Jacksonville, Cleveland, and New Orleans. So expect a high scoring game, plus 240, have to take it.
All right. So Charlie, I have a question about Godwin and really just the Bucs offense before we talk about Brian's pick, because naturally I've been on Godwin. I think B-Man has taken Godwin before, and it always seems to, the ball just always seems to find Mike Evans' hands. So what I would want to ask you is, if you were, if I was one of your buddies who wasn't involved in betting, and I came up and said, really like Mike Evans today over Chris Godwin, would you tell them not to bet it, or would you think like maybe you want to hold out for more value? I'm just kind of wondering what you think about this Bucs offense, because obviously Chris Godwin is so talented. He should have way more touchdowns now than what he has this year, but that concern about the ball always finding Evans' hands still creeps in my mind. So I'm just wondering, what would you say to that person? Get over it?
Yeah, I would say, listen, I'll be like, you know what, do you? But I just think that given the odds in the situation and the numbers that they put up are so eerily similar, and I'd tell them that yes, Evans has the more touchdowns, but when you look at the targets, it's not that different. And honestly, and I know they got Evans in the slot against, I believe it's San Francisco, but
yeah,
Godwin's better in short yardage situations.
Yes,
he's not the home run threat, but that's where the Bucs are going to kind of dink and dunk. And with Rachaad White playing, but popping up on the injury report, and who knows what's happening there. I like Godwin in the short yardage situation, especially. I think the odds, it's nearly 100 difference, the plus 100 difference. Evans is in the mid 100s. So yeah, I would tell him, you could do you. I'm not going to tell you not to take Evans because he always scores. But when it comes to value and when it comes to the matchup that I like here, Godwin's my guy.
Absolutely. All right. Just wanted to clarify that, because I know that people are going to say, well, what about Evans? That's always the natural question, especially when I bet Godwin. That was the first question that a lot of people asked me. So, all right, now let's move on. Brian, to your pick. You're looking at a bet between the Rams and Cardinals.
Yeah. So, hey, Charlie, just be thankful. I was going to go Pittman here, but the odds weren't good enough. So we'll just move on. But I digress. All right, look, my next pick, I'm going with the short king, Kyler Murray. Look, this guy, all he's done since coming back, everyone said, like, is he going to run the ball? Are we going to see the same Kyler Murray? And all he's done is scored 2 rushing touchdowns in 2 games back. This is a game where we could see a lot of points. I also do love Kyren Williams. But look, Kyler Murray, I've played his rushing touchdown or his anytime touchdown the last 2 weeks. And
same.
And last week I actually switched him out for, for the pick that didn't hit. So, But we won't talk about that. So look, I got to go with Kyler Murray here. I just think it's a matchup where we do see a fair amount of points. I think the receivers like Marquise Brown struggling a little bit. Obviously, Trey McBride is a big weapon, but I just think Kyler, anytime they get down there, his ability to extend plays when nobody's open and just that burst he's got, to hit it and score. So look, at plus 205, I'm going Kyler Murray for an anytime touchdown. Let's make it 3 in a row.
He's the most aggravating quarterback to watch if you bet against him, just because he just runs around and
extends plays.
You can't get him down. And
those choppy little steps too. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Listen, he scores and he's one of the most elusive quarterbacks.
Well, one of the fun things about Kyler too, because friend of the show, Dr. Nick Giffen, is on Kyler Murray's interception. It was around plus 140. He's got a lot of value on that. And one of the things too is you would think, okay, if a quarterback throws an interception, that's likely going to be a detriment for their rushing touchdown. Whereas Kyler, it has not bothered him at all, because he has scored in 22 regular season games. And when he scores in those games, he threw an interception in 17 of those 22 games. So 77% rate. So you could almost do like a same game parlay of interception and touchdown, and probably around plus 550, plus 600. It hit last week. It technically hit both weeks, technically. So we're looking at a third week here where that potentially may come through in a divisional game against the Rams. All right, I'm going to be looking at the New Orleans Saints and looking at their new wide receiver too. And that is Rashid Shaheed at plus 310, who is now going to get a boost in this offense with Michael Thomas now out. He saw a career high 9 targets last week after Michael Thomas got hurt. And Shaheed is just that bona fide deep threat on the Saints. All 3 of his touchdowns this year have been scored from 20 yards or more. And now Derek Carr is back at quarterback. And while Derek Carr, I've railed on him on this show, other shows about what he can and can't do. The one thing he can do is that he can throw a hell of a deep ball. And the Falcons are 30th in DVOA to the pass, 22nd in DVOA to the deep ball. Rashid Shaheed, he leads the team in ADOT, so you know that he is getting the big long throws in this offense. And the Falcons have given up 17 passing touchdowns this year, 11 of those to wide receivers. And of those 17 touchdowns that they have given up, 9 have been by 20 yards or more, which fits the Shaheed narrative. So that's about 52% of all those touchdowns have been scored from a deep threat. So Rashid Shaheed at plus 310 on this Falcons defense is who I like for week 12 for my second best bet. All right, so gentlemen, that's our 2 bets. Let's look at Sunday night football between the Ravens and the Chargers with an over-under of 47. Now, Nick was on our show on Thanksgiving helping us out with some fair odds for each of these games. He has dived again into Ravens-Chargers and is going to tell us who he finds for fair projected value to score a touchdown. Nick, take it away.
Thanks, Gilles, and happy Week 12 to all of you out there. I'm Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network, and I'm here to take you through anytime touchdown projections for Sunday Night Football between the Baltimore Ravens and the Los Angeles Chargers. We're showing projection value on just one player for this one, and that player is Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely at anything longer than 3-1. Likely enters the Ravens starting lineup in place of the injured Mark Andrews, who unfortunately suffered a season-ending ankle injury last week. In 3 career games without Andrews, Likely has averaged 6.3 targets per game, and he scored a touchdown in 1 of those 3. He also benefits from a nice matchup against the Chargers, who allow the second most targets to tight ends, behind only Houston, and the second most yards to the position, behind only the Denver Broncos. We're projecting Likely to score a touchdown, at least 1 touchdown, about 25% of the time. So again, anything longer than 3-1 will be value on him. That's anytime touchdown projections for Sunday Night Football. Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you, Nick. So he likes Isaiah Likely, the tight end 2, who is now into tight end 1 spot for the Ravens now that Mark Andrews is out for the season. I will say that his odds, Isaiah Likely's range, there's a lot of different outcomes here. I'm seeing odds maybe as low as plus 185, around plus 200, and then I'm seeing odds around plus 350. So as Nick said in the video, don't take it below plus 300 if you're shopping around. And the touchdown odds in this game are a little all over the place. Like I find we talk about this a lot, where the primetime game odds can get a little steamed pre-game. Like for example, at Bet365, the 2 wide receivers behind Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson and Jalen Guyton, who are both expected to play in this game. Quentin Johnson's around plus 220. Jalen Guyton is around plus 240. That's a tough sell to want to bet on guys like that when they're so unproven. Like Quentin Johnson, I mean, he's had 7 games now where he's been able to show what he can do since Mike Williams got hurt, and he hasn't really done much. He's caught 1 touchdown. Jalen Guyton was off of a lengthy injury history, out for the year for a torn ACL last season, and then now coming back, he was back for 1 game, got hurt again, missed a game, now coming back off an injury. That to me is just, it's difficult to trust, especially at those odds. The one guy that is also dealing with an injury, but I do have a little more trust in just based on the odds and just based on his recent track record, is Odell Beckham Jr. at plus 375. Really shown a good connection with Lamar Jackson over the last month. He has 2 touchdowns in those games. The Chargers secondary pretty much makes any quarterback look like a league average quarterback look like a Pro Bowler. So now Lamar is going to come in and probably throw for 350 yards on this defense. So I like Odell Beckham in this game. Nick likes Isaiah Likely. Charlie, who are you looking at for this game? Are you looking at somebody on the Chargers side, or are you riding with Nick and looking at Isaiah Likely?
Yeah, I love both tight ends in this matchup. When it comes to the Likely, I like Likely, and then when it comes to Donald Parham, I think Donald Parham at plus 550 is an absurd number, and one that kind of shot up the ranks because Gerald Everett is expected to play. But when you look at the 2, Donald Parham has double the amount of targets inside of the red zone than Gerald Everett has. So at plus 550 versus Everett down at 350, I think that's way too high. So when I'm looking at this matchup, I'm going to target the tight ends. Likely love that matchup, especially at plus 350, and then Donald Parham plus 550.
B-Man, what are you thinking? Like, remember last week we bet Keaton Mitchell at plus 333. Now he's down to around plus 175. Do you think the rookie could maybe pull out one? Maybe, like, I'm just kind of wondering, what are you thinking for touchdown odds for this game, and what are you thinking about betting?
Yeah, so the touchdown odds really aren't that great on a lot of these guys. I mean, genuinely, the only one that I bet, and I bet it, as soon as the lines became available when I was in Tennessee for Thanksgiving, was Isaiah Likely. And I bet that right away because I thought, all right, this is going to come down. It hasn't, it's basically stayed at that same spot. But for a guy who's going to be taking a starting role, and we've seen how the Ravens use tight ends. Not only that, Isaiah Likely, I hit a first touchdown and a touchdown score in his first game last year. Yep. that Mark Andrews missed. So, like, I've got, it's almost like I couldn't not. So yeah, when I saw that Nick was on it, I thought, all right, yeah, this is lovely. And the only other one I was looking at potentially was Lamar Jackson. But I think he's due for a rushing touchdown. We've seen the Gus Bus have about 15 over the last 3 games. So it feels like Lamar's running one in here soon.
Absolutely. And another thing you can do is you can go to actionnetwork.com and you can look at our anytime touchdown odds comparison tool, and you're able to see all the different availabilities for different players, different odds, to be able to shop around and make sure that you get the best odds. Because that's really the key when you are betting on touchdown scores, is you don't want to leave value on the table. All right, now let's start looking at our spicy touchdown bets of the week. This is where we maybe take a little bit of chances, take some guys with really big odds here. Brian, why don't you take us home, get us started rather. And who do you like for your spicy touchdown bet for week 12?
All right. So, look, I'm going to go to the Steelers-Bengals game. Yes, I know that it doesn't sound very exciting, but look, since Matt Canada was fired, I think we've seen some improvement in the running game, a.k.a. they're giving the ball to Jaylen Warren. He's first in missed tackle per carry. He's first in elusiveness rating. I mean, he's, yards expected at, this guy is literally insane, off the charts good, and just has not been getting the ball. And we've watched Najee Harris look average. So look, the last 2 weeks though, since Canada's gone, look, he's had 100+ rushing yards and a touchdown in both games. One of those was in a tougher matchup. Today they play the Bengals. So normally I'd say, okay, yeah, they're going to be trailing, but no Joe Burrow, no T. Higgins. So I think this is a game that can remain in a neutral game script, or they can have a slight lead. And I just think, you know what? As of the last 2 weeks, Najee Harris has not gotten as many red zone opportunities as Jaylen Warren. So that's huge for me to look at, especially when you have a new offensive coordinator. It just might be showing, a little tendency switch, and maybe he's realizing like what we've got. So I'm going to go Jaylen Warren, first touchdown score at plus 1,100. He was going to be my mild pick, but I decided, you know what? I got to get him involved somehow since I went with the short king. So I'm going to go 0.25 units, so a quarter unit on Jaylen Warren, first touchdown. And then I'm going to do a quarter unit on Stephon Diggs, 2+ touchdowns. I'd said
double down.
Yeah, look, man, I said the squeaky wheel narrative, right? Like, it's Stephon Diggs we're talking about. He's got, about 60 yards over his last 2 games. That's changing. So I think he scores 1. And I think, look, Josh Allen in this game where there could be a lot of offense, they might need to throw the ball quite a bit. I think Stephon Diggs could have a 2-touchdown breakout game. So I'm going to do 0.25 units on Stephon Diggs there. And right now I believe it's at plus 900. I'm going to make that my second one.
Yeah, so Jaylen Warren is around plus 182 score. Better odds this week than Najee Harris, finally. This is the first week where we're finally seeing a proper pecking order in this offense, especially now that Matt Canada is gone. And yeah, you're preaching to the converted. I've been talking about Jaylen Warren as like, why is he not getting more work for, I feel like, the entire season? If anything, it's very reminiscent of the Zeke Pollard paradox, like you clearly see that Pollard is the more talented back, but Zeke keeps getting the carries because the team is invested. Same thing with Najee and Jaylen. Finally, the Steelers are starting to come around on that decision. And then Stephon Diggs, I mean, he's got a 3-touchdown game this year. He could definitely get 2 touchdowns. So especially in a game where there's likely going to be a little bit more offense. So I have some long shot bets this week, but I went on the 2-touchdown angle as well. So what I did is I am buying low on Jamar Chase for 2 touchdowns. I got that at 15-1. And I'm going to take Josh Allen for 2 touchdowns at 17-1 and put a quarter unit on each. So really what I'm trying to do with Chase is I'm trying to zig when everyone else is zagging, because everybody is just completely off the Bengals bandwagon. But the one thing that we do know is Chase is still likely going to see 12 or more targets. I don't think the drop off between Browning and Burrow, he's still going to get a ton of volume. And he caught a touchdown last week with Browning at quarterback on the number 2 ranked pass defense, the Ravens. Now they're facing the Steelers, probably still top 10, but again, a team that he has had a 2 touchdown game before in his career. T. Higgins is out. So if Burrow was playing, the odds on this would probably be closer to plus 850. So that's why we're getting these inflated premium of odds. And the Steelers defense, they're a bit of a paper tiger in the secondary. When you dive deeper into the stats, for wide receiver, they're bottom 10 in targets to the position, bottom 7 in yards allowed. They just haven't allowed a lot of touchdowns, only 9 to wide receivers, which is around league average. But again, Jamar Chase is not your league average wide receiver, especially with the volume that he's likely to see. So at 15-1, I think this is a solid spot. For Josh Allen, we did this last week, didn't end up scoring, but again, the pedigree is there. 7 touchdowns in 11 games this year. And this Eagles defense, again, that funnel of where they're trying to keep everything on the outside. I think what's going to happen is that pass rush is going to come by him, and he's going to be able to just run over the middle plenty of times. I think similar to what we saw with Patrick Mahomes last week, where he was seemingly getting overwhelmed by the pressure and then would just take off. He had 6 rushes for just under 40 yards. And the pass defense, the part of the reason why you're on Stephon Diggs is that pass defense been spotty for the Eagles. They've really gotten exposed mainly in divisional games against the Commanders and the Cowboys. But another reason why we like Allen here is just the interceptions and the turnover plays. A lot of the time when you're getting into the goal line, you want to make sure that you make that perfect pass. And sometimes he's almost maybe trying to make like the beautiful pass, and that's actually come back to bite him. So I think if anything, he might just tuck and run in those spots as opposed to trying to force it to maybe, Dalton Kincaid over the middle or something like that. So Allen for 2 touchdowns at 17-1, Jamar Chase for 2 touchdowns at 15-1. We're putting a quarter unit on each. Charlie, spicy pick. Take us home. What do you got?
Yeah, so I got a 2+ touchdown and then an anytime touchdown here. I'm going to start Falcons last week, or I believe it was last Sunday. All these shows and all these games in the middle of the week, you forget which one. Bijan Robinson, 2+ touchdowns at plus 1,000. And then a little sprinkle on Ian Thomas, 22-1 to score an anytime touchdown. We'll start with Bijan. He's finally broken out. Last week we talked about, or I guess in week 10, 75% of the snaps, 22 carries, 95 yards, and a touchdown. And we finally saw, Arthur Smith make that step and actually be like, okay, maybe Bijan is the best running back in our offense. And so I think it's only a matter of time before that continues and he gets 2+ touchdowns. I mean, this is a guy that is dominant in the passing game and the running game, so he can break it free. He's one of the most explosive running backs that's in football. And now he gets a New Orleans defense that's 19th against the run when it comes to DVOA. And if running backs have scored in 3 of the last 4 games against the Saints defense, that's a bit banged up. So I think this is a great matchup for Bijan. Love his anytime touchdown. I was debating that for my miles, but going to take a stab at 2+ at 10-1. And then Ian Thomas. This is kind of a page out of your notebook, Gilles. You always talk about Tommy Tremble when Hayden Hurst was the starting tight end. Well, Hayden Hurst is out. Tommy Tremble is now tight end 1. So I'm just going to go down the list with the tight end 2 or 3 with Ian Thomas here. With no Hayden Hurst, his opportunities. And we've seen Bryce Young. He has an over-reliance on his tight ends, especially in the red zone. It's Thielen or the tight ends. Of his 9 total touchdowns, 3 have gone to Tremble, 1's gone to Hurst. So 4 of 9 have gone to the tight end position. We get Ian Thomas, who's back from injury. He played about 27% of snaps in his first game off IR. He's probably going to play around 25 to 35% of the snaps here too. Mostly used, I would say, in that 2 tight end set in the red zone where you can have a play action. At 22-1, I think this is just an absurd number against a Tennessee team that ranks average when it comes to stopping tight ends in DVOA. And he's a huge body, 6'4", 260. So, when in doubt and when you're struggling on the offensive end, you throw it up to the big guys. And so I'm taking a stab with Ian Thomas here, 22-1.
Yeah, Bijan, I would love for that to happen. I have him for Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's probably not going to happen now at this stage with how good CJ Stroud has been this season, but at least show us something so that way I don't feel like a complete idiot for betting that preseason. And Ian Thomas, I'm rooting for you, Charlie. He hasn't scored a touchdown since 2020. So I'm again, it's one of those things that like at 22-1, it would be such a huge hit. But now what's happened with this offense, Tommy Tremble, I think the best odds you can get him now is probably around plus 650. It's a long time ago, it feels like, when we were betting him on the show at 22-1 and 16-1. So yeah, Bryce Young, you're right. He does look for the tight ends. No Hayden Hurst today. So I definitely think there's more opportunity to spread it around, and Ian Thomas, like you said, should fit the bill for that. So those are our spicy bets for week 12. And the touchdown show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen. Well, that's the show. But before we go, we should remind everybody that Chad and Simon from the Favorites podcast are going to be doing a live show coming up here on December 3rd in Hoboken, New Jersey at the Shepherd and Knucklehead. All you got to do is check out the info below in the Power Hour YouTube description, or you can go to eventbrite.com and search the Favorites podcast for more info. Well, gentlemen, that's all for today. 4 picks from me. We've got 4 picks from Charlie, 4 picks from Brian. We're going to see you on Sunday for next Sunday, rather, for another edition of the Power Hour at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And if you misconvinced me, you can rewatch the show or download the Action Network app, get all of our picks in one place. And you can also check out all of our Week 12 touchdown bets in the Action app. I want to thank you for watching the Touchdown Show presented by Bet365. Bon chance.